missing from one of these Friday meetings, you can log on to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/for all the people. And we have our meetings recorded on there. We also are coming up on legislative delegation. We put different families that go and speak on our issues on the YouTube channel so that we can broaden that message. Some education videos on there. We got a good channel. Anywho, if you're on this call, we say hi to our friends that can't be here. And I think that's the gist of the opener. Oh my goodness. So we are at the beginning of the year. Happy New Year. I hope that we could all just celebrate for a minute, putting last year behind us. I think this year, when it comes to raising awareness for families with developmental disabilities, we can check that box a lot of ways. And now this year, we can really move on some great policy. We have legislators who are, forgot the word, was hog wild excited is what has the terminology to really help improve things here in Florida. And we do have a lot of opportunities. So the way we do it in this group is we share our personal stories with our local legislators. The people who live in your town are responsible to help the people that live there on the issues that they're facing. So this group goes and we meet with our local legislators to let them know what our stories are. What are you going through? What have I been going through? And that way they can really shape policy. So our legislative session runs every year for 60 days. It isn't like different parts of the year each year. This year, our session begins, what is it? Help me, March
1 March.
March 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
March 1st.
March,
and that goes for 60 days, and I'm really terrible at math. So before all of that, before they go to Tallahassee, they start drafting the bill. And right around this time, there are legislative delegation meetings happening in every county around the state. If you are connected on our Facebook page, I have taken the liberty of making an event for every single one of the delegations that are coming up as they roll out. And that way, I would really like families, if you really like families, to just click interested if you live in that area. And that way we can connect with one another who's closer to us. But the legislative delegation meetings, hang on one second. Yes,
Can I go to the shop?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have your phone? Yeah. It is my 12-year-old's birthday, and we are at the Kennedy Space Center today. We were at delegation meetings. So delegation meetings are happening right now, rapid fire all across the state. And this is an opportunity for you to go to your local area and speak with all the representatives and senators that are in your area about these issues. It's an incredible opportunity for not only for you to be able to voice your concerns, but also these are publicly held meetings. So the community can also hear what's going on in general. But this is where legislators, it's like, I'm trying to do a sports analogy. This is like where they find out where we really need to put our focus, or what are our constituents saying to us. And by showing up to these delegation meetings, families are saying, you need to pay attention to us. At the Sarasota delegation, we had over 60 families come together. I got to meet Paul in real life. That was pretty cool. And this is an awesome place for us to kind of just be heard. So anything else you want to share on delegations? Any questions on delegations? Because this is a really important part of what we do in this group. And I don't want anyone to feel like if you have a question, you can ask it. This is the space for that.
Yeah, Stephanie, it's really hard to find out when a delegation meeting is in your area. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yes, I do. The ARC of Florida posts all the delegation meetings. The Facebook events that I post in our group page, I get them from the ARC of Florida, and they're really like they keep it up to speed. And usually, if the delegation has like register to speak instructions, they put that in there on their website. ARC of Florida has done a great job.
Paula, also
So just go to their website.
I was going to say that we'll put the link in the chat, but also Melissa posted a really cool link that has the list of delegation calendars for this session here in the chat as well.
Okay, great, great. Because I know that's always been a problem in our areas to find it. And it's kind of like by the time you find it, it was yesterday, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because they do put them out, and then this year I feel like they did quicker, like rapid fire, where it's like,
Right,
oh,
yeah.
cool, that's next week. So, any other questions on delegation meetings? Is there anyone who's planning on going and maybe has never gone? I know Paul is. I can't see everyone, so you're gonna have to help me and come off mute. I'm on this little phone thing.
I'm going.
You are? Have you gone
Yes.
before?
Yes, I went to the Charlotte County
Oh,
one last year, but I'm going to Collier next Wednesday, and I'm going to Charlotte the 29th.
well, I will get to meet you next Wednesday. Are you going to the Collier delegation or are you going to the Collier Community Forum on Developmental Disabilities?
No, I'm going to the private. Melissa told me to be there at 2:00.
I'm so happy that you're going. Do
Yes.
you have any questions about what you need, what you're gonna say, or?
I'm formulating something presently, but you know, it's like this saga like continues to develop each and every single day with a new twist.
Yeah, right.
Let's say so obviously what I have to say is probably going to might even change, you know, even prior to that, but I have an idea. I'm going to go over it with Jen. I've been working very closely with Jen, who is Roy's coordinator, so you know, yeah, no, I'm determined to bring some awareness now.
Well, you will. You voiced it, and that will bring the awareness. I'm so happy that you're coming and talking about, you know, what needs to change. When we talk about delegation, this is what I found very shocking and like difficult to manage the first year was you get 1 to 3 minutes, sometimes 30 seconds to speak. So a lot of the delegations ask for speakers to register in advance, and they'll get the most time. They'll be on the agenda. But if you sign up at the back of the room the day of, that can get cut down to 30 seconds. So when you're thinking of all of the points that you're making, they gotta boil it down. And how I've learned how to do that, because I'm a yacker, if you guys haven't noticed, is hi, my name is, so my name is Stephanie. I live in Collier County. And then why am I here? I'm here because I have twin boys with developmental disabilities. And then 15 seconds on a personal story. So one of the things, I also have a bird brain of all the things I want to talk about. So, you know, I have struggled a lot this year with the paperwork inundation now that my kids are on the waiver. And I think it would be great if we could streamline our, our online application to be a portal for families. Thank you so much. Oh, wait, and then there's an, so you want to give your story of why this is important to you, and then would you allocate funds to make a portal happen in whatever language you do? But it is possible to kind of do a 30-second pitch and then build it out from there. Like, what else could I say to do that? And that's how I would recommend. Just expect her getting 30 seconds. And then the other thing is, when we're at these delegations, we're in a room full of people with all sorts of different things going on, and it's distracting. So having kind of concise practice
Right.
pitch will really help, kill the nerves. Really is what it is.
Oh, I know, because I get up there and my knees knock and my voice quivers and, you know, for the first 30 seconds, which is all I'm getting. So yeah, public speaking has never been my strong point. I've done it, and it's been a very, very long time. There's just a few points, especially at this next delegation, that I would like to make just to bring some awareness to them. And I don't plan on doing any great big spiel. I'm gonna maybe save that for Charlotte.
Yeah, well, Charlotte is where the Senate president is. So what an awesome delegation. If you were there last year, Senate President Ben Albritton spoke for maybe 7 minutes, which is on our YouTube channel, about how he may not have a connection, but he has the heart to serve. So, like, how cool is that we're here in this time? Like, they're actually saying, we want to help you. So I'm so glad that you're going. Anyone else? Questions or thought bubbles on delegation meetings? Nicole, you're my screener. I can't see.
No, nobody's raising their hand. So, and everybody's pretty quiet for the beginning of the year. I think we're all still probably in holiday mode.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we've got delegations. That is a huge way to contact. The other thing that I really want to emphasize is just a few weeks ago, we started rolling out our stories. Now, last year, we did a cool thing with one pagers. This year, it's much easier, much easier. If you take your cell phone out and turn the button so that the camera looks at your face like Tom Nurse, press record. And we want the same thing you'd be doing at a delegation, 30 seconds of your story. And we want to be able to make our photo book, if you will, of our one pagers a digital one. So that way they're more engaging. And we had examples. Paul has an example already on our story. 30 seconds of who you are and where you need help. And I do have a tutorial for that maybe Nicole can put in the chat.
I'd like to see that.
This is really important. The idea, if you can't make it to a delegation, if you are, unable to get to these events, you can still advocate. It doesn't have to be a formal, like, we can make it work as long as our voices are spoken. And we only have, I think, 10 videos that have been submitted so far. We really need families to literally just take your phone out and talk to us. And I have like this crazy awesome editing software. So if you say, or if there's like blank spots or you ramble on, I can help you with a couple clicks of the button, which is just like cool way to go technology. But it's a no stress way for us to really enhance our message. Could you imagine all the families, they were able to submit their stories, and we could just, last year what we ended up doing was sending one story every single day of session. And I think that would be incredibly powerful. And we certainly have more than 10 stories to share. So I'd really like to encourage you, talk to your friends that have developmental disabilities in their life as well. This could be a huge way for us to impact if you're not able to come to delegation meetings. And did I bring that point home? Because I went in my head, was like, I got to talk about this because this is important. And then the last thing that I want to share, and then I'm going to go ahead and let Nicole and Tom take over so I could spend my 12-year-old's birthday with him, is the Collier Community Forum on Developmental Disability. In where I live, Collier County, we are going to have a special, just our topic, community town hall style, delegation style meeting where families can come and speak for 2 to 3 minutes on what their story is, and that all of our delegates, so Senator Pasadoma, who was just our past president, Representative Lauren Mello, Representative Benner, and Representative Otana will all be there. They'll be there earlier for the delegation, and they're going to stick around because that's how much they want to know about what we're walking through. This is the first one that's ever been done in history, and I think it could be a really incredible opportunity in your area too. So I would love for this to be kind of just, we're going to try it this year and then really build it next year so that we can get their individualized attention on our subject matter and educate them. But the legislators we had here, and I didn't really understand this either, they're in charge of all the laws of Florida, every single one of them. And there's a lot, of content. And our subject is incredibly complex and individualized. So it's really important for us to be the ones speaking to them. And I'm really excited about this. So if there's any possible way you can get down to Collier County on January 8th, which is next week, any possible way you can get to Collier County at 2:30. It's going to go from 2:30 to 4:30. And I believe that it's going to be a wonderful event where families can really voice their concerns.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
a couple things. Could you speak to a moment about how did you make that happen? How did you actually create the opportunity to convince the delegation to hang out for another 2 hours to hear about developmental disabilities?
Well, it really wasn't hard, which is crazy to me because I thought it was going to be. Nicole up there, she did this amazing candidate forum in Brevard where anybody who was running for like any office met on the subject of developmental disabilities. And then Melissa had something with Representative Buchanan in Sarasota before the election. And I went to Senator Pasadomo and was like, hey, I really like what my friends have done across the state. What do you think about us having something like that at like a delegation for our families? And I think before I could even finish the sentence, she was like, oh my goodness, that's a great idea. We're going to already be there for our legislative delegation. And I will make sure that we have a hard stop at 2:00 so that we can, regroup and come back at 2:30 and really have an opportunity. You know what? I was thinking about this last night. One of the things I found really interesting, she's like, and because at the delegation, they're sitting in the commissioner's like big chamber seat. She's like, and we'll just bring the chairs down to the floor. Like, we want to have a conversation. That's money. That's money in the bank where the legislators are saying, let's just sit like, family around the table. That's all like, that's a good start. That's a very good start.
So that ties together with the videos, and that maybe you can't be there because the reality is you're at home caring for a person. You may not have the money, the time, the availability to travel to be able to do those types of things. Again, making your video, being able to reinforce that message, being able to humanize the issue, to be able to generate empathy and awareness and understanding and engagement, all those things make a huge difference. And so, Stephanie, I really appreciate you finding a balance between trying to be a mom and be an advocate and doing all the things in between. And I know that you are celebrating your son's birthday today in the other side of the state and trying to step away from this so we can get it from here if you're ready.
Thank you. My mom has never taken a part of these conversations on the way up here. It just reminded me how much what we're doing is really, really needed. And I love you guys. But I do have a team that never gets attention one-on-one with my space that I think I'm gonna go do. I don't think I'm gonna log off because I'm afraid I'll ruin it. So I'm just gonna get out of here.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good one. Thanks. Just turn off your camera.
I'll figure that out. But thanks.
Okay. So it looks like Tom and Nicole, we're going to kind of run this thing from this point forward.
Here? Yeah.
Hi, I'm on Cumberland Island at the National Park Service, volunteering once again as a docent, doing historic tours at an old mansion on Cumberland Island. But my passion and advocacy efforts never stop. Today I was looking at Facebook, and there was a anonymous mom asking about moving from Maryland to Florida. And there was just loud, and her has a son with developmental disabilities on a similar program to consumer-directed care in Maryland. And so I heard that Florida's a bad place to move to. And how long is the wait? Can I get on the wait list early? How long would it take? And what was responded was, it's a terrible place for 49th is off. Don't come, don't come, don't come. But I also saw a lot of misinformation that the wait list is not a first in, first out. It is based upon need. And so the whole issue around understanding the process of crises, what that really means, and being able to activate a system of support that last year got a substantial increase in funding as a result of the efforts of all of us. That we need to continue to tell the truth about the intense levels of needs and recognize that we have an opportunity for us where we have leadership who is paying close attention and see this as an issue of opportunity. And so when we come with solutions and stories and passion and engagement and persistence and determination, it is a very powerful force. And it's an opportunity we have before us, particularly this year, for good to come up, to do good things. And part of what I'm hoping is that we really look at a commitment to developmental disabilities by the state, an expansion of that commitment, a recognition of how important it is. And those 30-second stories, they tell the story. They tell the stories of the faces of people and how this has been impacted and how it changed things, both on a positive and a negative way. And it's really important that this be communicated because there's also those efforts of legislative language being developed and networking of communication and engagement of to have a delegation from Collier County being willing to sit down for 2 hours. And Nicole, look at the credit that you got for what you did. You did a candidate forum that brought the idea of these candidates need to understand developmental disabilities and we need to engage with them. That is a very patriotic, very democratic little D, American engagement of for the people. And so this is, and then Melissa, your work and what you did, Senator, and, you know, with the senator was awesome. And now here we are rolling out another phase and something that, again, we keep being able to develop things that we're not some highfalutin organization. We're not a highly financed organization. We're just a group of families and allies and friends and, you know, folks like Melissa. And so when it comes down to it, what made a difference was the human face, was the touch and the warmth and the humanism of the story. It wasn't just a line in a budget anymore. These legislators began to see people that lived in their district, that were human beings, that were families, that worked in their community, that shopped in the same stores and did these things. And it changes the whole fabric to something. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be mean. We just have to be honest and truthful. And that alone, there is an old saying, the truth will set you free. And I believe it's true. So we have to be able to continue. I encourage you. We'll take the 30 seconds, create one.
And Tom, we have someone who's raising their hand. Anna, you had a question?
Well, a couple things. I'll get into my main stuff once you guys get through everything you want to get through. But to that point, I'm originally from Maryland. So I came to Florida for college. And, you know, I grew up in the system. So I had quite a bit of experience navigating that system. I was a foster child still when I came to Florida to go to college. So I will say, you know, one of the big confusion points when you look at our waiver versus other waivers is, first and foremost, the agency states that it's the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. That's obviously a misnomer. It's the Agency for Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. So that's confusing. Then you add in experience with waivers in a place like Maryland. So Maryland does have a waiver, but there's different ways that waiver works. You have to have an IEP or an IFSP, you have to have a diagnosis, you have to be under a certain financial limit, but that limit only applies to the individual, not the whole family. But that's not truly clarified when you read through that, you know, legislation. You have to know what you're looking for, know what you're talking about. And my sister's still in Maryland. My 2-year-old niece was just diagnosed with autism, which of course not a surprise, being that we have a genetic link through her family. And She had watched my son grow up, so she understood what she was looking for. And because of that, she's a great advocate for my niece, and she has me as help, which is huge. But now she's trying to navigate a waiver that has a very long wait list, but it's a true wait list. And then you have people coming from states where the level of support is very different and things are accessible in a very different way. And even just the difference between a private school and a public school in the state of Maryland, it's a huge difference between what we have here. There's way more oversight, and those schools are basically dictated by very influential parents who demand the highest quality of education. Here, we have lots of smaller private schools that don't have oversight, that may accept an individual with a disability, and you can use this, scholarship that, for all intents and purposes, looks really beautiful from one end, but then when you try to enroll in a private school and you realize, oh wait, this is kind of useless to me unless I use it to homeschool. So there's things that from the outside, they can look really appealing until you dive in, and trying to explain to somebody from another state how our waiver works, it's like speaking Chinese. And I've had the conversation numerous times, and I feel like every time they cherry pick through the information they're given and they pull out what they want to hear, because ultimately they want to move here. And you're not going to stop anybody from doing that. And I do think there's value in us, sharing what we're able to do from this end. But really, these are people that are not used to having to put this kind of effort in. You'll see them post, and I get calls. I just went through this. We got a call at our, charter school, a parent looking to help her 2.5-year-old twins and her 5.5-year-old. 5.5-year-old is in school. Twins are not in any kind of early steps program. They've never received early intervention. She wants IEPs. We give her all the information she needs. She schedules a tour of our school. She then goes into a Facebook group and says, I need a one-stop phone number so that I can get IEPs for my 3 kids. And it's like, and then you have all this misinformation popping up. And then I get an email literally the next morning from one of our district people who's upset with me because the information this parent is receiving is not the actual information, but it's also not the information we provided her with. It's random junk that she got from a Facebook group because the answer she got wasn't an answer she liked. They're looking for a way to, bypass the work. So yes, I think it's important for us to share this with them, but do not be surprised if a lot of people moving here from elsewhere are not interested in actually putting in any work and effort to push this process along.
And that's actually sadly their choice. And one of the most significant systematic changes in Florida is that the waiver's never been fully funded. So an agency has had to have been forced to pick between those that they serve and those that are waiting, and the conflict between that. And so that until full funding actually occurs, we are always going to have a conflict. And in our consumer directed care, which is the self-direction, there's an 8% reduction, which actually takes and compromises the whole definition of medical necessity by saying, well, actually, it's medical necessity minus 8%, which makes it very difficult because 24 hours of care turns into 22 hours of care, and yet there was 2 hours that you needed the care. There is a ton of misinformation. In fact, one of the most significant important roles of the waiver was to count the child as a family of one to eliminate the economic hardships of a lack of coverage in private sector insurances to be able to get Medicaid under the protection of early periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment to serve those children properly. But unfortunately, over the years, compromises and political changes, and right now we're in you automatically got opted into managed care, which historically has poorly served developmental disability.
Managed care is set up to bring an individual back to a state of health, not to maintain long-term services. That's the insurance system in general, which is why there's a requirement and a need for something like APD. If insurance and managed care on its own were effective for this community, there'd be no need for an agency. It wouldn't exist. It would have never existed. And I think that's kind of where a lot of our problem lies, is they're just looking at the financials as opposed to what that actual need entails. It's
Well, I'd suggest that it's more that they're not able to look at it honestly and fully because they're inadequately funded to meet the needs, and so
that's true.
there's a forced challenge. I've been involved since the absolute inception of the waiver. My daughter was part of the class action lawsuit that brought the waiver to Florida, um, and worked closely through the long time. That's why they call me the OG on this call. And what we want to try to do is filter out the misconceptions, misunderstandings, and unfortunately, we have systems that are kind of intended to help but designed to say no.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, you look at so Area 4, for example, because I'm chairperson for Family Care Council Area 4, so I'm in touch with families all the time. Which, hi Paula, I've missed you. But anyway, I had a woman who is in her professional life, she is a nurse who works for one of the agencies that contracts for long-term care for individuals that fall under our purview, and her son's in crisis. I've heard it numerous times that our area manager, who can be very lovely, also doesn't see a need for individuals under 18 to be served by the waiver. And some of the things she wrote back to this mom were so infuriating, and just, well, you don't need this because you live near the beach and you live in this area, and if you can afford to live in this area, there's no reason why you would possibly need this waiver. Also, your child is under 18, so there's no way you're actually in crisis because that's childcare, not healthcare, and this concept. But yeah, it's set up to say no. She is literally just automatically saying no without taking into account any of the other details.
so one of the things that we've done to address that is to move from it being purely administrative to being more legislative, and
Yes.
meaning to looking at constituent services of meeting and getting to know your legislator, who is your representative in functioning government, and helping them understand that you need some assistance in a system that should be helping you that is not. So that is very different than the administration of an underfunded program versus the making of laws and the representation of people. So we try to separate those things out. That I know from history that there are many people that work with these within these systems that are grateful quietly to the advocacy of those that are free to speak. Well, they are not. And when you make them do what they had hoped they could do but weren't allowed, they were grateful that their job did what they went into that career to do. And it's a tough road. So I think that it's better to feed the dog than kick the dog.
Oh, I agree, 100%.
You know,
And I encouraged that mom, who's also a nurse, to sign up for the delegation. I sent her the information. I gave her a rundown of really, I was like, you need to bring just something visual and then tell your story, but make them see what you've been up against trying to navigate this, and how difficult and frustrating it is, and how it's put your family in a state of crisis. And it will be further crisis if you're not able to access the services that are, just to get on the wait list.
well, just to get an application. I mean, let's face it. One of the things that I think was an amazing accomplishment that would have never happened under normal bureaucratic channels was the online application happened between in 7 months. And
Yes.
in the world of government, that is like the super high speed train.
Yes.
And that was because Stephanie created the entire product, delivered it, demonstrated it, showed it, worked with them, and they said, "Oh, well, this now is a priority, and we'll turn on this." The funding was also put in the legislation last year for the technology to invest in those. And so um, I work really hard, and I know many of us do, to maintain some degree of hope and happiness and faith. And it is difficult in times to feel that, but it is also important that we might be able to actually accomplish something. And we did it last year, and we have been encouraged that we can do better this year. The eyes are on to have the things like the candidate forums and then delegate meetings focusing on a very specific issue that is a very small part of the population, but a very, very complex and very needy population
Well,
is,
and
is a milestone.
to an extent, it's a small part, but I can tell you from my working with the school district in St. Johns County alone, we have 17% of the enrolled students have some type of intellectual delay or disability. And it's slightly higher than the average for Florida. But those numbers jump so significantly every year. So we're talking about, you know, a huge jump in especially autism, for example. And there's a lot of difficulty and miscommunication and what falls under the purview of autism as far as the agency is concerned and what they're willing to accept on the wait list, when you can be accepted, what you need when you do finally file for services, that kind of thing. And families misunderstand, which, I mean, it's my opinion that if it states in the legislation that autism is one of the covered diagnoses, then there should be no question autism should be covered. But of course, they've been given.
What is necessary in the waiver is the medically necessary services to address one's health and safety that would
Right.
otherwise put them in a crisis or require an institutional level of care. And so the real challenge is in order to make these systems function, it requires a tremendous amount of skill in documenting, which most people may not have the skill sets to be able to do, which is very challenging. But the medical necessity is the leverage. The health and safety is the focus of APD. The documented, prescribed, medically necessary services for that is what it requires to make a crisis not just a letter, but actually an action that's addressed with a plan of care, with an AIMS worksheet, with a budget, with a whole system of here's what it's going to cost. You know, we have it set up right now that a significant number of people, the QSI algorithm-based budget becomes their budget, which may not necessarily reflect at all what the true health and safety needs are, but is a mathematical formula based on the answers to a few questions, which, if you're not violent enough, or if you haven't been arrested enough, your behaviors don't necessarily mean to trigger that much in the score, but have a profound impact on the ability of somebody to be able to go to work and pay their bills. And one of the most important things about the waiver had been a recognition, having been the statewide parent consultant to early intervention to early steps, when it was that the transition to services was intended to be that the families would have a streamlined transition to APD. It wasn't APD at that point, but to those services, and that the not impoverishing the family and creating that whole track of poverty, divorce, deceit, and all the things that go with forcing families to be poor or pretend they're poor is just wrong.
Right,
That
and that's
has
exactly
been
where we're
lost.
at.
That has been lost, and so our stories have to be part about young families that have an opportunity ahead of them to have the life, the care, the services and support, so they can have a job, so they can have benefits, so they can have health care, so they can pay their bills and maintain their houses. Because I've been there
Yeah, I
where
have too. This is my story. I've lived it. My husband and I remained unmarried through most of my son's early intervention years, because had we gone through his insurance, had we been married, my son would have maxed out his lifetime limits before he was 2 years old. He would have never received the level of services he received. I mean, I was told when he was an infant, he would never walk or talk. He would never have quality of life. Well, some days I wish he couldn't talk, because it is very difficult now as the testosterone starts to build up in there. But I'm so grateful for all those services he received. He's able to walk. He's able to even run. He's able to participate in all kinds of things he would have never been able to participate in had I not had access to Medicaid, had I not known how to work a system, because I grew up in one. Had I not had that knowledge, behind me, my son would have never received services. He would have never had the help he needed. And that was a full-time job. It remains a full-time job. I didn't look for a job. I ended up in a job. I was recruited by the Ark of the St. John's. I was recruited by Bright Feets. I found myself in jobs that I wasn't looking for, but here I am. My husband over time has moved up in the fire department, you know, and now we're at a point where my son continues to need an insane amount of supports, which are changing, but I can't even access them if I wanted to, because first and foremost, finding a place where most of that exists, it doesn't, not here, at least not in my area, not where it's functional, where he can go to school and then access that after school. And then on the other side of that, the financial burden of that is significant. And I see that all the time with families in my early intervention program at the Ark of the St. John's. Their children desperately need ABA services. Their children desperately need all of these outside supports. We're willing to make it work with these providers and have them in school, make it so that it's easier on the family. So families can work, families can go home and be a family. They can actually have bedtime at an appropriate time. But their ability to afford those services, it's, you know, if they work, they can't afford to also have therapies. They need to either have access to Medicaid, and it not just any Medicaid, and it can't be just Florida Kid Care. It has to be CMS, or they get denied services. I mean, I've had our BCBA reach out to Medicaid programs, pediatric Medicaid programs, United Healthcare, telling us that they don't even have a code for ABA therapy. You are a straight Medicaid program and you don't have a code for ABA therapy. By law, you have to cover what's medically necessary, and they don't have a code for it.
So your area would be a perfect example of being able to look at creating one of these delegation forums and being able to gauge that, and to be able to change the leadership philosophy that recognizes and values how much young families, their trajectory for life is altered if they without the ability to. You can't work and care at the same time and never sleep and and live. I tried it. It doesn't work.
Right. When I
And I'm
actually
about to run out
intend,
of
so
battery.
our delegation for St. Johns County is on the 10th. So I'm a little late. Also, my husband is on shift that day. So I literally can't do an after hours delegation because I have to leave there at 2:00 on the dot to be able to pick up my kids. And I'm going to have somebody else pick up my daughter because she gets out at 1:15 on Friday. But I do intend to.
But my point being is just take that opportunity.
Yes.
And if it, the reality is that's why the 30-second thing is very important, is because sometimes the story is, I would love to be there today to present, but I can't because I'm doing this. And that's the 30 seconds is an honest truth about, there's no way that I can travel with my child. I mean, I know people that cannot get in the car with their child without somebody else being there, because the child will either beat themselves near death or beat the driver that way. And so we have to be able to tell the truth. I appreciate your engagement, and let's go back to Nicole. And Nicole, I'm running out of battery here, girl.
Well, we are winding down to the end of the hour, so I could say that we could probably wrap up a little bit. I appreciate this conversation. First, I just want to say thank you to Anna for being, so open and honest about your lived experiences. Anna's an amazing person. If you guys don't know already, she does a fantastic job up in Jacksonville. She just did a Connecting the Dots conference, was like a miniature family cafe over there in Jacksonville. I can't even imagine the amount of work that took to put together. So I just want to say a huge kudos to her for that. Paula, for all the work that she does with the FCC. Oh my gosh. I mean, that is a big tackling undertaking, in and of itself. And so while we have these amazing people on the call with us, really would like to underline and highlight all of the efforts that you guys continue to, because we know that this is not an individual thing. This is a team thing, and nothing works when nobody can do it on their own. So I would like to maybe take a minute to acknowledge that and thank you all, everyone, for your help with these things. I wanted to say, as we wrap up, I know Stephanie wanted to talk about the delegation meetings, and we've discussed that. I'll reiterate for those who joined late to check our Facebook page. She created an event tab for every single one that we see pop up. So, perhaps there's one that's close to you, even if it's not your county, try to make that, if you're able to go, please do. It's such a huge opportunity to meet your legislators where they are, where you are locally before decisions get made. So I think, a lot of effort, a lot of opportunity is now before session begins. So I'd like to reiterate that. Also, check out our YouTube channel. All of these links are in the chat notes. So if you guys go into the chat, you can go in and see Stephanie has done some amazing videos. If you're nervous about understanding what does it mean to do public comment, how do I prepare for that? How do I, do the 30-second video if I want to participate in this campaign? I put both of those links in the chat so you can take a look at those, or even quick grab them and share them with all of your local Facebook groups or friends and family that that might want to participate. We would love that. Always please share, welcome everyone to come to the calls, and that's where I come back. I think circle back to we can't do this on our own. Nobody operates as an island in this world, especially in our community. So definitely appreciate everyone's help. Every small little step is a huge, huge advancement for our community. So I want to, thank everyone for that. Also, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there's some bills already getting filed. I was just kind of scrolling through some of this before the meeting started. Did anybody see this? This is just for grins, but there was a Senate bill. I'm gonna see if I can put it in the link real quick. It's for ESC programs and it talks about workforce stuff. So let me see if I can grab it real quick and post it into the chat. But it was talking about like, hold on. Oh man, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna put it in there. Oh yeah, SB 102, Exceptional Student Education Bill, and I'm gonna put this in the little chat. So some of this stuff is actually beginning, and so we can definitely start to see that, the conversations are already being had, decisions are already being made. So I feel like that kind of definitely bolds and highlights that, if you're going to reach out, a good time to do that is now. So
And one last thing I'd like to add, though, is also
yeah.
to remember that Medicaid and med waivers are a state and federal partnership. And so we're about to go through some pretty significant administrative change here, and it's important to keep an eye on things. And one of the things that's also important is that last year Florida reported a $20 billion surplus. And
That's
so with a $20 billion surplus, we hope that maybe it's not on the backs of people with developmental disabilities, and we can help get full funding happening and really begin to free things up. So the opting out or opting in, depending on your choice of fee for service, Medicaid versus managed care. There's a really good video that Stephanie did on that. And those decisions are coming up. That February 1st deadline is coming up. Some people have already gotten their letters even after they've opted out. They're still getting a letter. So keep an eye on this. It's an important function to be aware, and it's a very individualized choice. But historically, managed care has not been as good a fit for developmental disabilities as a fee for service.
Right. That's a good point. Thank you, Tom. We've got a couple minutes left. Does anybody else have any last minute questions and or comments before we wrap up the call? The first one of the year, which, wow, can you believe that? 2025, here we are. So does anyone else have any?
Yeah, this is Melody.
Hi, Melody.
I'm off camera. I'm doing well.
Okay. That's all right.
Hey, I put in the chat, when is the end of session? I would like to plan and call into a question, answer, and legislative delegation type presentation when we do our information session this year. We typically would do it either like in the fall, and I've got a lead to do it in a major hotel here possibly. And if I can do that late spring before school's out and after session, I'm thinking then we could get our legislators here on the Treasure Coast there. So does anybody know the end of session?
Yeah, technically it wraps up, I want to say, so 60 days, it begins at the beginning of March. So it should be the end of April, but it's probably going to be like the 1st or like the 3rd or 4th of May, I think is technically when it adjourns.
Yeah.
So you know, you're going to want to look at something for after that, if that makes sense.
Are there any like weeks that they're back home in their offices? Or is that
Um,
like full bore
There's
the whole
there's
time?
somebody in the office
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, there's
Right.
always going to be someone there as an aide. So, and they'll be
Right.
able to also give you, I don't know, like who specifically you're looking to engage with.
Well, yeah, we've got those from Indian River, St. Lucie, Martin, Okeechobee. So, you know, namely, it'd be like your Gail Harrell, your Toby Ovendorf, your Aaron Grawl. Who else am I missing?
So you reach out to their legislative
Right.
assistants and build a local relationship, and that's how you'll either get an
Oh, we
appointment.
do. We do have that. But I'm saying I want to know when they possibly would be at home and see if I can coordinate that way instead of just picking a date and saying this is when we're having it. I want
Well, I'd
to
suggest to
plan.
call the legislative dates and say, here's an idea we've got. You know, you got any open dates on that
Open date.
calendar dates that maybe we might want to do this?
Yeah, and if you're doing it and you're wanting to ask for after session, that gives them plenty of advance, like, okay, you know, because right now, obviously, everybody's trying to scramble to get their meetings scheduled and get
Yeah.
prepared
Right.
for session. So you're looking specifically for after you know, that would probably
May.
be a good time to start having that conversation. You're in Indian River?
That's part of my family care council region.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I
Area
didn't know if you were
15.
going to the Indian River delegation meeting next. I think it's
It's Monday.
next Monday. Yeah,
And I'm not supposed to go as family care council, but I'm sure we'll go as a mom and a representative of those with disabilities.
Oh, good. I'm going to be there.
You're
So I
allowed
was
to
going to
educate.
say,
You're
I
not
will
allowed
see
to
you there
I
on Monday.
know. That's the stance I take, but I don't wear my badge.
Oh,
That's
no,
all you
that
got to
would be
do.
great
You know.
because I'll be there too. We can be together.
Okay. All right. I'm not on the agenda, but I will go for my 3 minutes.
Yeah, that will be good. Then it'd be good to have someone else there because I was the only one at the oh no, I wasn't. I was there with JJ for the St. Lucie County delegation? But we were
16th, December 16th, I was in Gainesville at a medical appointment.
Oh, well, see, I was just gonna say that, you know, it's interesting to me, like to see how they schedule this and to see who actually is there speaking to what their
Yeah.
priorities are. But you know, if we hadn't been there, no conversation would have been had, at least at that
Yes.
meeting, you know?
So JJ showed up there.
Yeah, JJ was there with
Awesome.
me. And so but yeah, I'm scheduled for the one on Monday for Indian River because I kind of straddle the fence for Indian River
Cool.
and Brevard where I live. So
Yes.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. All right. Well, you guys, we're wrapping up. I'd say that you know, we got 3 minutes. We can probably log off a little early. Does anybody have last minute comments or anything they want to say before we call it close? No? Tom?
New Year.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, for taking the time out of your Friday afternoon to, you know, kind of share and continue and build as we are heading into the session and we begin our new year. Very excited to see what this year will bring for us. I'm very hopeful. I think a lot of us are. So, you know, please, if you have questions, reach out, don't hesitate. We are a community after all, and what's good for one usually is good for all. So just let us know. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. Let's just say that, right? Let's have a great weekend. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yep, no problem. Bye.